Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel, The Bold and Beautiful Always, and today we've got something really exciting for you. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Let's jump right in. The moment the truth shattered the surface of Ridge Forrester's carefully reconstructed reality was the moment everything he had been clinging to, the hope, the forgiveness, the promise of redemption with Brooke Logan, exploded into a raw, searing fire of betrayal that scorched every fiber of his soul. And as he stood on the edge of the Forrester estate cliffside, staring down at the windswept ocean that just days ago had swallowed Brooke's seemingly lifeless body only for him to leap heroically into the churning waters to save the woman he thought he had lost forever, he now felt the nausea of manipulation twist through his gut, because what he had just heard from Hope, from RJ, and most damning of all, from Brooke herself, wasn't just a confession. It was an emotional ambush, a psychological act of war, a deception so profound that it made every previous betrayal, the kisses with Bill, the lies with Deacon, the constant waffling between loyalty and lust, seem almost trivial in comparison. Because this wasn't about a misunderstanding or a slip in judgment or even a moment of emotional weakness, this was about orchestration, about design, about Brooke looking him in the eyes and deciding that the only way to drag him back into her arms once and for all, the only way to pull him permanently away from Taylor, from peace, from clarity, was to simulate a suicide attempt, to hurl herself off a yacht during their accidental reunion cruise under the pretense of needing air, knowing Ridge would follow, knowing Ridge's protector instincts would override logic, and most of all, knowing that if she could place herself in the role of the damsel in danger, that savior complex Ridge had never fully buried would reactivate with full force. And now that he knew the truth, now that he had pieced it together from the timeline inconsistencies, from RJ's suspicious glance when Ridge had mentioned Brooke's fall, from the yacht captain's statement that no distress call had been made, from the crewman who admitted Brooke had tipped him to look away just before she leapt into the water, and most crushing of all, from Brooke's own tearful, half-apologetic confession that she just wanted him to feel something again, the fury that rose in Ridge wasn't the silent, brooding kind that made him walk away or internalize the pain. It was volcanic, violent, visceral, and without thinking, without speaking, without even breathing, his hand moved across the space between them and connected with her cheek in a moment that silenced everything, the ocean, the wind, even the breath in both their lungs, as the sound of palm against skin cracked through the air like lightning tearing open the sky, and Brooke gasped, staggered back, her hand flying to her face in disbelief as tears sprang to her eyes, not just from pain but from the realization that for the first time in all their decades of chaotic, passionate history, Ridge had struck her, not in rage, not in sadism, but in the most human, wounded expression of betrayal, and in the stunned silence that followed, Ridge's chest heaved with the weight of emotion he couldn't put into words, eyes ablaze with hurt, fists clenched at his sides, the fire behind his gaze not just from anger but from devastation. Because what Brooke had done wasn't just a trick, it was a desecration of their entire narrative, a weaponization of love, of fear, of memory, and as Brooke stumbled to explain, as she stammered out desperate justifications, I thought you'd leave forever. I saw you drifting toward Taylor again. I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. I love you, Ridge, I've always loved you. The words fell like ash, meaningless against the burning wreckage of what she had destroyed, because in that moment Ridge saw her not as the woman he had once idolized, not as the seductress who had captivated generations of Forresters and Logan men alike, not as the mother of his child, but as a stranger, a woman so terrified of losing control that she had risked her life and his sanity for a moment of staged heroism. And he shook his head slowly, voice low and trembling, barely audible over the crash of waves below as he said, "You played me, Brooke, you made me think you were dying just to win." And his words struck deeper than the slap, because they came from a place beyond anger. They came from grief, from the death of something sacred between them. And Brooke's tears streamed freely now, makeup running, lips trembling as she tried to close the distance between them, reaching for him, sobbing that she never meant for it to go so far, that she only wanted to feel his arms around her again, to be his world again, to make him remember what they had been before the years of betrayal. But Ridge stepped back, rejecting her touch, a gesture more brutal than the slap itself, and his voice grew louder, more raw, as he yelled, "You didn't just lie, you shattered every ounce of trust one had left." And then came the barrage, the torrent of long-buried wounds finally erupting as he listed them all. The night she let Deacon stay under their roof. The way she kissed Bill while Ridge was fighting for their marriage, how she let Hope manipulate Thomas, how she made everything always about herself and her needs and her endless appetite for attention, and Brooke collapsed into sobs, collapsing onto the sand, crying out that he didn't understand, that he would have left her if she hadn't done something dramatic, and Ridge bellowed, "Then maybe I should have," and the force of those words cracked something deep in her spirit, something irreparable, and neither of them spoke for a long moment as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the beach, their silhouettes stretching apart as symbolic as their emotional chasm, and finally Ridge turned, walking away slowly, every step heavy, his back to the woman who had once been his everything, now just a silhouette hunched over the sand, and as he reached the top of the cliff, Steffi was waiting, having followed the shouting voices, her expression caught between confusion and alarm as she asked what had happened, and Ridge couldn't speak, he just shook his head, eyes distant, soul fractured, as he whispered, "It's over, she jumped into the ocean, and dragged me down with her," and as the realization sank in, Steffi's eyes widened, not just at the metaphor, but at the cruel truth behind it, and she reached for her father, holding him as he finally let the tears fall, not because he still loved Brooke, but because he finally knew that what they had wasn't love anymore. It was a cycle of control, of hurt, of theatrical tragedy, and this time, the curtain had finally dropped for good. Hope and Steffi continued sitting vigil by Liam's side when a nurse arrived to check on him. The nurse advised them to continue speaking to Liam because she believed he could hear them. "He knows we're here. We have to believe that," Steffi said. "But he shouldn't even be here," Hope pointed out. Steffi lamented, if Bill hadn't gotten her pardoned, Liam wouldn't even have been shot by Luna. The next person to check on Liam was Bridget. She asked Hope and Steffi if they had told Kelly or Beth what had happened, but Steffi said they didn't want to scare them. Grace quickly showed up and requested that Steffi and Hope leave so she could examine Liam herself. Bill asked Ridge and Taylor where Liam was, as if they had some say in whether he got to see his own son. Bill acknowledged that it was a foolish decision to free Luna from prison. "I will regret it for the rest of my life. I just pray losing Liam is not going to be my punishment," Bill said. Bill countered Ridge's argument that he shouldn't be able to see his son, as if Ridge had any say in the matter. Taylor noticed that Hope and Steffi were with them because Bill didn't want Liam to be alone. Bill walked off to see Liam, so Ridge followed him to stop him. Ridge chased Bill into an empty room and shoved him. "Liam's fighting for his life because of what you did. Are you sorry you made a mistake? Then act as though it. Do the right thing for your son once in your life," Ridge demanded. "You saved my daughter today when she was almost dead. Because of your actions." Bill was informed by Ridge that Liam was also a member of his family. "If Steffi loses him," Ridge warned, "I swear to God, if my granddaughter loses her daddy, I am going to rip you to shreds." He told Bill that he would be alone and accused Bill of being selfish. "I thought I had a read on the situation." Bill murmured, "I thought Luna and I had something in common. There can be no justification for what I've done." Brooke appeared out of nowhere and inquired about what had transpired while Taylor remained stationary in the waiting area. "Luna happened," Taylor informed Brooke, who was confused. Taylor relayed the sequence of events at the Beach House Art School, shocking Brooke. Just in time for Ridge and Bill to show up, Hope and Steffi reappeared. Hope immediately began laying into Bill for having Luna pardoned. "Bill, one of the reasons he is in that hospital bed is because of you. You and your sick obsession with Luna," Hope shouted. Hope also ordered Bill to leave, but he refused. As a result, Hope continued and made a remark that was inappropriate. "Are you trying to gain our sympathy? I really don't think you deserve it, to be honest. Especially not from Liam, who is battling a brain tumor." Hope quickly stopped herself as Bill and Brooke looked more confused than ever. "What?" Bill asked. Hope told the truth, as she had been begging Liam to do. Hope stated, "Liam has been struggling with cancer this entire time. Liam didn't want to tell you because you have zero compassion, Bill," Steffi sniped. Bill was in a state of disbelief. "Even if he survives this, the tumor is inoperable," Hope said. A hysterical Bill insisted he would do anything in his power to save Liam, while Steffi chastised him and called him a selfish, arrogant fool. Bill, weeping, insisted that Liam would not die. The good news came from Finn and Bridget at that exact moment. Liam was beginning to speak. Hope and Steffi quickly ran to his room and begged him to wake. Everyone was delighted when Liam suddenly began to open his eyes. Sheila absorbed the information that Luna was dead, while Finn tried to explain what happened. Bridget and my mother did everything they could, but Luna died in recovery, he said. He advised Sheila to focus on her own recovery, reminding her that her injuries could have been a lot worse. Lee walked in and asked to speak with Finn in private. Deacon apologized to his wife when he was alone. He knew she felt a special affection for Luna. I am aware that she harmed loved ones. She did you harm? I attempted. She just wouldn't listen, and now she's gone. Sheila wept. I feel like a little piece of me died with her. Deacon resisted Sheila's assertion that Luna had the potential to reshape her life, despite Sheila's claims to the contrary. She would have killed Steffi if it weren't for you. You saved her, and I'm so proud of you for defending her, Deacon said. Lee asked Finn to be truthful with her about Luna in another empty room. How do you really feel about your daughter's death? She asked. You're my son, and I love you more than anything in this world. You are my son, so you shouldn't try to make this seem easy. I just try to process everything. Her life was spent. It was so full of unhappiness and trauma. She was my infant. That kind of agony affected my child as a child. How could I not feel something? Finn asked. As for Liam, he was shot and is currently fighting for his life. All of this is due to my daughter, Finn continued shortly before Chief Baker entered. He told them if Luna survived, she'd be heading back to prison. He was informed by Finn that Luna had died. Catch all new episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful weekdays on CBS and Paramount+. Hope and Steffi sat in tense silence beside Liam's hospital bed, each watching the subtle rise and fall of his chest, listening to the beeping of machines and the faint hiss of oxygen, their eyes moving in unison to the smallest twitch of his hand or flutter of his eyelids, desperately searching for a sign, any sign that he was still fighting, that he hadn't given up, hadn't slipped too far into that dark abyss that had tried to swallow him whole since Luna's bullet had torn through his body and nearly ended everything, the silence thick with all the things they hadn't said, the memories they clung to like lifeboats. And then the door creaked open and a nurse stepped inside with calm professionalism, clipboard in hand and hope in her voice as she offered a quiet observation that sent a ripple of cautious optimism through both women. He can hear you, you know patients in comas, they often do, it's more common than you think, so keep talking to him, it matters more than you realize, and with that, she moved efficiently to check Liam's vitals, gently adjusting wires and noting numbers, while Steffi leaned closer to Liam's ear and whispered with firm belief, he knows we're here. We have to believe that, Hope. We can't give up, but Hope, her voice trembling with both anger and pain, replied, but he shouldn't even be here. Steffi, he shouldn't be in this bed, fighting for his life. Liam wouldn't have even been shot if Bill hadn't gotten Luna pardoned, if he hadn't opened the door to her again, and Steffi nodded slowly, the weight of the truth undeniable, her voice low with resentment as she muttered, Bill thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was saving her, giving her a second chance. But what he really did was destroy everything. We're here, watching Liam suffer, because of him, and before either woman could continue, the door opened again and Bridget entered, her white coat fluttering slightly behind her, her face composed but concerned, carrying the burden of a physician and a sister-in-law, glancing from the monitors to their weary faces as she asked quietly, have either of you told Kelly or Beth what's happened? And Steffi shook her head immediately, her hands clenching in her lap as she said, no, not yet, we didn't want to scare them, not until we knew more, not until we knew if Liam was going to make it, her voice trailing off into silence as Bridget nodded in understanding, though the guilt in her eyes betrayed her knowledge that children could sense more than adults gave them credit for, that Beth and Kelly were already aware something was very wrong, and as Bridget gently checked Liam's chart, Grace appeared behind her, stepping into the room. With calm authority, her presence commanding as she said firmly, I need to examine him alone, please, and though Hope and Steffi hesitated, their maternal instincts warring with their respect for Grace's medical judgment, they ultimately nodded and stepped into the hallway, their footsteps reluctant and heavy, and elsewhere in the hospital, Bill paced the floor, a rare storm of emotion swirling behind his eyes, his usual confidence shattered as he demanded to know where Liam was, cornering Ridge and Taylor in a hallway like a man searching for oxygen, his voice cracking as he said, where is he? Don't I get to see my own son? And though Taylor tried to remain composed, Ridge's fury ignited instantly, his protective instincts flaring as he snapped, "You think you get to decide that? After what you did?" And Bill's defenses fell away as he admitted, "Finally, getting Luna out of prison, it was a bonehead move. I know that now. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I swear it. But if Liam dies, if I lose my son because of this, that'll be my punishment, and I'll carry it forever." But Ridge, unmoved, growled back, "You don't get to play the grieving father now, not when it's your fault he's in this position in the first place. You don't get sympathy, you get consequences." And as Bill turned away, desperate to see Liam despite Ridge's protests, he pushed past them, storming down the corridor, only for Ridge to follow and chase him into an empty patient room, the door slamming behind them as Ridge exploded, grabbing Bill by the jacket and shoving him back, his voice filled with fury as he shouted, "Liam's fighting for his life because of you, because you decided to play hero to a lost cause. You made a mistake? Then act like it, take responsibility, do the right thing for once in your life, for your son, for my daughter who almost died because of you." And Bill, stunned into silence, struggled to find words, his voice barely audible as he muttered, "I thought I had a read on the situation. I thought Luna and I had an understanding. But I was wrong. There's no excuse for what I've done." And Ridge, his eyes blazing, warned, "Liam's not just your son, he's part of my family too, and if Steffi loses him, if my granddaughter loses her daddy, I swear to God, I will rip you to shreds with my bare hands." And with that final threat hanging in the air, Ridge stormed out, leaving Bill alone with the crushing guilt of his decisions, and back in the waiting area, Taylor sat tensely, glancing at her phone for updates, when Brooke suddenly appeared, having just arrived after a call from Hope, her heels clicking across the floor as she demanded, "What happened? Where's Liam? What's going on?" And Taylor stood to meet her, face grim, saying two heavy words, "Luna happened," and Brooke, stunned, listened as Taylor relayed the harrowing events at the art school, the shooting, the chaos, the blood, the sirens, and Brooke's eyes widened with horror as she gasped, "Oh my God, is Steffi all right?" And Taylor nodded solemnly, "She is, but Liam took the bullet meant for her." And just then, Hope and Steffi returned, their eyes red, and they found themselves face to face with Bill and Ridge again, the tension spiking instantly, and Hope turned her wrath on Bill, her voice sharp as glass as she shouted, "You're one of the reasons he's lying in that bed, Bill, because of your sick obsession with Luna. You brought her back into our lives and look what happened." And Bill, devastated, tried to respond, but Hope continued, voice rising, "You don't get our sympathy, not after everything, not when Liam is dealing with." And she stopped abruptly, catching herself, realizing she had said too much, as Bill and Brooke looked at her with alarm, and Bill asked, "Dealing with what?" And Steffi looked at Hope, unsure whether to stop her, but Hope took a breath and told the truth, her voice trembling as she said, "Liam has been struggling with cancer. He's been hiding it from all of you, but he has a brain tumor." And the shock in Bill's face was total, his breath catching, while Brooke gasped, covering her mouth, and Steffi added coldly, "He didn't want to tell you, Bill. Because you have zero compassion, you only think of yourself." And Hope followed, saying, "Even if he survives this, he might not beat the tumor, it's inoperable." And Bill, nearly buckling under the weight of it, shouted, No, that's not true. There has to be something I can do. I'll pay anything. I'll call anyone. Liam isn't going to die, not like this." And Steffi, her fury boiling, screamed, "You selfish, arrogant fool, you already failed him once, don't make this about you now." And then, as if summoned by the sheer intensity of the moment, Finn and Bridget entered, their faces cautious but uplifted, and Bridget announced, "He's responding, Liam is starting to wake up." And without another word, Hope and Steffi rushed to his room, standing over him, calling his name, holding his hands, begging him to come back to them, and then, slowly, miraculously, Liam's eyelids fluttered and began to open, his eyes dazed and unfocused at first, but unmistakably alive, and the flood of joy and relief that washed over them was indescribable. And while all this unfolded, elsewhere in the hospital, Sheila sat quietly, absorbing the devastating news that Luna had died during surgery, Finn delivering the update gently, saying, "Bridget and my mother did everything they could, but Luna didn't make it, she died in recovery." And Sheila's face twisted in pain, tears spilling freely as she whispered, "I tried. I really tried. I thought I could help her change." And Deacon stepped forward, holding her hand, saying, "I know, baby, I know you cared, but she made her choice, and she nearly killed Steffi. If it weren't for you, she would have." And Sheila nodded slowly, the guilt consuming her as she muttered, "She was a part of me, and now she's gone, and I feel like a little piece of me died with her." And meanwhile, in a nearby room, Lee pulled Finn aside, her voice quiet but firm as she asked, "How do you really feel about Luna?" And Finn, overwhelmed, said, "I'm still trying to process it all. She was my daughter and now she's gone and Liam's lying there, fighting for his life. Because of her, how am I supposed to feel?" And Lee, her face softening, said, "You don't have to pretend grief is complicated, it's okay to feel everything." And just then, Chief Baker arrived, asking about Luna's fate, and Finn informed him solemnly, "She's dead," and the chief nodded grimly, saying she would have been headed back to prison otherwise. And as the sun began to rise outside the hospital windows, casting golden light over the sterile halls, the lives of everyone connected to Liam, Luna, and the tragedy at the beach house were changed forever, by death, by survival, by guilt, and by grace. And though the wounds were fresh and the road ahead uncertain, one thing was clear: the bold and the beautiful would never be the same again.